Okay. Hello, everyone. I wanted to reach out to everyone with diabetes or even with pre-diabetes with a very important message, which I think is the most important message for all of us in this country. As you know, the second wave of COVID 19 has taken a very big toll on our country. The number of cases, the number of deaths have been far, far more than in the first wave. Also, we are finding that younger people are getting affected more, hospitalizations are more, and the complications are also more. Like in the first wave, there is no doubt at all that those with comorbidities, and these comorbidities include obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and so on, they seem to be doing badly. But now we have got one more new threat added on. This is what is popularly called as the black fungus, but the correct name for it is mucormycosis. This is a kind of a mold or a fungus which develops. What is a fungus? You keep a bread out for, say, 2 or 3 days or for a week. You'll find something greenish developing or blackish developing on the bread, isn't it? If you cut the bread and just keep it, or you keep an apple or anything, you'll find some kind of a blackish thing developing on the food. What happens is the fungus, which is there in the air, settles on that and it begins to grow. Now, our body is also like that. Normally, there are a lot of fungi in the air, but it doesn't settle down because it doesn't have a place for it to grow and doesn't have the right atmosphere for it to grow. This can come from the soil, from the air, from many places. This fungus can come. In fact, it's floating around everywhere. But there are certain things which make this fungus an opportunistic infection, by which I mean that it can grow very rapidly. And one such situation, in fact, the most important of every condition, medical condition you have, is diabetes, especially uncontrolled diabetes. Some of you may ask, then how come in the first round we did not see much of this mucormycosis? We heard of people dying, we heard of people getting to ICU, we heard all that. But the mucormycosis, black fungus, nobody talked about. Also, abroad also, in US, if you see, the number of deaths are probably more than in India, but they didn't talk about mucormycosis. Now, something changed in the treatment of COVID 19 towards the second half of the year of 2020. The recovery trial was done in the UK, where they showed that for people who are doing very badly in the ICU, they are dying, their oxygen saturation is going down. Steroids, as you know, is a life saving drug. So, when you, for any condition, when the BP is dropping, you push in steroid. If the oxygen is going down, you push in steroid. It's a kind of a lifesaver. So this steroid was given in the UK in this recovery trial, and they found that people miraculously got out of this bad situation, and many of them survived. So since then, the using of steroids in the ICU setting for COVID 19 when people are doing badly has come to stay. But what happened was, as with everything else in medicine, people started going overboard. With the first symptom of COVID, they started giving steroids. You should never do that, because the first 5 days or the first 1 week is when the virus is multiplying. And when you give steroids, what happens is you're reducing the immunity, you're reducing the inflammation in the body. So by that mechanism, your own immunity also may go down in the process. Why you are giving it when it's very serious is because there's a hyper-inflammatory response which is going to kill you. So at that time, you give it to save your life. That's very different from just taking steroid just like that. It's not like a vitamin tablet that you can just take or an immunity builder. It's not at all like that. Steroid is a double-edged sword. You must remember that. So when they start taking the steroids very early, the virus can actually multiply much faster. That could be one thing which was responsible for this mucormycosis. The second thing is, because of the steroid, the sugar goes very high. So when the sugar goes very high, this any infection can increase in the body, and particularly these fungus infections like mucormycosis can become much more marked and much more severe and much more frequent also. And that is what has happened in this particular COVID-19 and the second wave. The third thing that may be happening is that It could be the oxygen which you're using. We don't know how pure it is. It may be the water which is used inside the humidifier. It may be inside the ICU itself, whether all the tubes are cleaned properly. We don't know. And also indiscriminate use of oxygen in the homes and oxygen concentrators and in camps, even auto rickshaw, carrying oxygen and going, and buses carrying oxygen and going, oxygen bus, oxygen train, oxygen this, oxygen that. Now, what is the outside hygiene of all these places? Imagine auto rickshaw going on the road through a dusty road where all this fungus and everything will be there. And then, of course, the person is trying to do good. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to do, but look at the condition inside an auto rickshaw when you push an oxygen to somebody's nose. Imagine what all infections can go in. So I'm just hypothesizing that maybe it is this indiscriminate use of oxygen, indiscriminate use of steroids, the lack of hygiene, and of course, most important is uncontrolled diabetes. So with this in view, what can we do to reduce the incidence of not only mucormycosis, but also to improve the morbidity due to COVID-19 in general? Now we keep talking about sugar control, diabetes, uncontrolled diabetes, it's in diabetics, it happens, all these things we say. What are we doing about it? And therefore, I have come up with this proposal of making this month, the June 2021, as the glucose control month. I'm not calling it as a challenge. We're not challenging anyone. It's an opportunity. So I would say here is the greatest opportunity that you have. Number one, to reduce the incidence of COVID. Number two, to reduce the morbidity and mortality due to COVID. Number three, to prevent the secondary infections that can come. Even COVID can lead to bacterial pneumonia and other things. That also you can reduce. Number four, you can definitely reduce the occurrence of not only black fungus, but also white fungus and yellow fungus. I don't know. I think all the colors of the rainbow will come out in the fungus now. I think it's more scientific to use the proper names for these fungi. What is black and white and yellow? And we as doctors have not heard all these terms. First time in the public, all this is coming out. So-called black fungus is also not really mucormycosis. Mucormycosis is mucormycosis. So let's call it as mucormycosis. Because it's black in color, the people call it as black fungus. White fungus can be nothing but candida, simple thrush that you see. Anybody in the ICU or in the hospital, you'll find a white coating. That is fungus. That is a simple thing, and that can be very easily treated with a gel or with a tablet or something. It could also be aspergillosis. Now, aspergillosis, another deadly fungus, just like the mucormycosis, that also needs very powerful treatments, and these treatments are not 100% safe. They can damage the kidney and so on. So I would like to appeal to all of you to get your sugars under control. So what should you do? Number one, if you know that you have diabetes, increase the testing. If you have been testing it once a day, make it 3 times a day, at least for say 1 day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you check whenever you want. Check 5 or 6 blood sugars a day. How do you do that? When you get up in the morning, fasting before breakfast, check 1. After breakfast, after 2 hours, check another 1. Before lunch, check 1. After lunch, after 2 hours, check another 1. Before dinner in the evening, you can check 1. And after dinner, after 2 hours, you can check 1. You may say, how can I do 6 times a day? Just 1 day you do everything and see how it is. Okay, you don't want to poke so many times a day. Then today you do all the before food sugars. Today you do fasting, before lunch, before dinner. Tomorrow you do after breakfast, after lunch, and after dinner. So in 2 days you've got the entire profile of the day. Sometimes the before food will be low, but the after food will go very high. By doing this, you can find out. There is something called as AGP, or ambulatory glucose profile. More correct term for that is continuous glucose monitoring, or CGM. You just have to put a small patch on your hand. And then for 24 hours a day, for 14 days, every blood sugar will be tested in that. 100 blood sugars in a day can be recorded, and it will give you complete graphs. It will tell you what is called as time in range. That is, it should not go below 70, it should not go above 180, and if it's within that, it's called time in range. At least 70% of the day, or 17 hours out of the 24 hours, you should have the time in range. Now, that's very easy to put. Just put, it's not very expensive. Put it on your hand, and then you can scan it, and we'll be happy to help you. If you get in touch with us, we'll be happy to help you. At the end of this video, I'll give you an email ID to which you can write, or a telephone number. And if you write to us, we'll help you to keep your sugars under control. As a diabetologist who's been in practiced for almost 50 years, I would say this is one of the greatest crises in diabetes that I have seen in my lifetime. So if you don't respond now, when are we going to respond? So I appeal to everyone with diabetes in India who's listening to this video to increase your glucose testing, to see that all your fastings and all your after food sugars are kept under control. And if possible, this is a time to put this ambulatory glucose profile or this AGP sensor and then see whether the sugars are under control throughout the day. If you've not done your HbA1c test, the 3 months control test, please get it done and keep it below 7%, even below 6.5% if possible. If you need any further help or clarifications, please write to me at the email ID that I'm giving to you, and I'd be very happy to answer. If possible, I'll try to give you individual answers to all your questions. But do stay safe, do keep your sugar under control, and together we will fight the COVID-19 as well as mucormycosis. So all the very best, and God bless. Thank you.